Hello and welcome to the Spideydude Experience. I'm Zach Joyner, your friendly neighborhood webmaster and host of the program. Tonight we are going to be covering 3 issues of Spider-Man. We have issues 907 and 908. Also, we have the Adjectiveless Spider-Man number 158. 906 and 906, 907. I got the numbers wrong. Anyway, so we'll be talking a lot about these 3 issues tonight. Cannot wait to discuss them with our panel here tonight. But before we get started, we got to thank our patrons at patreon.com/Spidey Network. Now, if you're watching us live on the YouTube page, if you're seeing these names, they are not, in fact, updated. We have had 3, that's right, 3 new patrons join up and become part of the Patreon subscriber count. So, without further ado, the ones you see on screen if you're watching us live on YouTube are Vickman, Scott, Greg, Phoenician, Kale, Georgia, Jessica, Catherine, Cindy, Jurgen. Thank you guys for your support. And if you're listening to the audio edition of this show, you've already heard the 3 newest patrons. I don't have the list in front of me. I do apologize. We'll have it on for our next episode. So, they get some exclusive perks. Some great perks such as getting to see a commentary of us talking about Amazing Spider-Man 1, us talking about specific satellite issues like Silk and Ben Reilly Spider-Man, and we'll be talking about the new Lost Hunt miniseries as well. So, Patreon subscribers, they get all sorts of perks, including getting episodes early, such as Voices from the Eyrie, a Gargoyles podcast, and more. So we also have the upcoming Patreon first show, Books of X. Books of X will be covering the Krakoa X-Men era of books. It'll be hosted by my executive producer of the program, of this program, and the graphic designer for Spideydude Radio Network. He is known as Baja Blast on the stream. He is Neil Bogenreiter. Hello, Neil.
Hi, it's good to be back, and soon we'll have even more processing power because I got my new graphics card today.
Yes, he is the co-producer, host, Books of X, so that is coming soon. Are we getting it in 2022 or 2023?
It will be launching in early 2023.
All right, so be launching.
That's when the roadmap is coming up.
So next up, we will have Paul on here shortly, but we have Adam, our art apologist.
Hey, it's good to be back.
Welcome back, Adam. So, all right, this episode, like I mentioned, we're covering the 3 issues. If you watching us on Make My Mayday, we have 1 episode left here in 2022, and then we will take a breather. But we got a lot of stuff cooking behind the scenes that I cannot wait, and hopefully we can get some more stuff in December. If not, we will definitely be back in 2023 with a ton of new content. We will be doing a news program because I have to, because Neil is overjoyed and elated over a certain news topic that if you're a longtime listener of the show, you already know. So Baja Blasting Bogenreiter is what Vinkman says. Vinkman also says hello there. So if you're watching us live,
General Kenobi.
So for our audio listener, you probably heard this disclaimer already in the audio edition of the show, but I'm going to say it again live. There's going to be references possibly to visual aids and or live comments as these are done on youtube.com/Spideydude Radio Network. You can still follow us on Twitter while Twitter is not dead yet, but on Twitter at Spideydude Radio, at Spideydude Network on Facebook and Instagram. And if we decide to launch other stuff, twitch.tv/Spideydude Network. You can find us on the Discords as well. Discord link is going to be in the description of this episode, both the audio and when I update it on the video edition. So
I do plan on eventually making a Tumblr for the crawl space.
And speaking of hosts of certain podcasts on the Spideydude Radio Network, we have @From Erie, at least from now on Twitter, the host of Voices from the Eyrie, a Gargoyles podcast. He is Greg Mashansky. Hello, Greg.
Hey, webcam's working again.
Yay!
His web. Yay! For
Which
those.
means, because I owe you this.
Uh oh. Galactus.
He hungers for plastic.
Oh
Yes,
man,
he does.
my nipples are getting hard just looking at him. Oh,
Hey, Greg, how's Deathsaurus
Yeah?
coming along?
He's well over 9,000. You know the meme.
Oh, he just came out in color today, right? They revealed
Yeah, he
his color
did.
renders. Oh, baby.
Yeah.
Okay, so before we turn this into a Transformers podcast,
Unlike Robbie Reyes, I think this one's actually going to go.
F in the chat for Goblin Queen.
So okay, Neil, you and Javi recorded a commentary for Patreon, right?
We have not yet. He had to take care of some family stuff, and I understood completely. So we will be rescheduling that for another time. But we do have something very fun in the pipeline for people who know that me and Javi have a certain fascination with robots.
Robots in disguise.
Well, you gave it away, dick.
Okay, kids. No. Those that have watched this show and or
for 2 years,
like it is the ongoing joke that has never died, and partly because I blame Vinkman for this, because he's the one that continues to perpetuate it. But now we're just into the joke. By the way, also shout out to the Walleye and Web Snappers crew. They had me on talking about the 67 series, which was bonkers. I'll leave a link in the description down below. It was quite an entertaining episode.
They're great guys. It's a fun show.
Yeah, Greg's been on there. Speaking of Greg, you're in the middle of Cities of Stone, the 4 parts.
Yes, the big 4-parter in the first half of the second season. It was where a lot of people think the show really grew its speed. They go into they spend 4 episodes going into the backstory of 2 of the lead villains of the series, Demona and Macbeth.
So
and they use a lot of actual Scottish history, not just a Shakespeare play. So there's a lot of stuff in there that hasn't been told outside of this Disney cartoon, even though it's real Scottish history.
Hello, Carrick 2001. Welcome to the show. All right, so that's going to be ending out this year, and then you guys are going to take a bit of a hiatus and come back at the end of the first quarter next year. Is correct?
Yes, we are, and we're also talking, but we might have a couple of fan shows in between, like last year. We'll see.
Oh, does that mean that I need to start watching some episodes of Gargoyles?
You might want to, yes.
Okay, all right. It's probably a good idea. All right, so if you want to hear me on Voices from the Eerie, again, I will definitely be checking that out. So again, we're really excited. Voices from the Eerie is such a great program for us because it just expands our reach. It has been the most popular show. The numbers have been just outstanding. I'm not one of those that can be like, the numbers are the best just to blow smoke up his ass. I'm saying it because it is the truth. The numbers have been really, really strong. And, as long as the website doesn't sit there and act up.
Would you believe I kind of feel bad about that because it's a Spider-Man website, so...
No, but here's the thing. Like, look, okay. Yes,
we can tie it in through association to Wiseman. That's all that matters.
Because it's, it's a prequel/sequel to Spectacular Radio. By the way, watch it on Disney Plus. Going away from Netflix already. Bad news, but it's going to be it is on Disney Plus. So,
real quick before we do that, I want to talk about the fact that Gargoyles #1 from Dynamite pulled 197,000 copies on its first issue. Phenomenal sales for a Dynamite issue. That's incredible.
That outdoes Power Rangers, guys.
That does everything right
now. I'm sorry. That's a joke because back in the day, Power Rangers beat Gargoyles in the ratings every time. So. First
time I've been able to catch one of these live. Been enjoying these. Well, thanks. Parker.
Oh God, I'm stuck.
Matt Bird. Oh, that is weird. All right.
What a wonderful frame to freeze on. Holy shit. What a great reaction image. I'm going to I'm going to try and make that into an emote.
All right, I'm going to remove Greg for a minute. All right, if any of you guys got the IDW and Marvel Comics Artist Edition of Spider-Man by Tom McFarlane?
I did not.
No, too expensive.
Yep.
Paul though might.
That's what, $125, right?
Yeah, listen, I can buy almost an entire wave of Marvel Legends.
I can buy a new set of RAM.
I do need more RAM. Good God, I need more RAM. All right, Greg dropped off. He's coming back here in a minute. All right, so we're going to be covering 3 issues tonight. Do we want to do Slot Man first? No, we'll do Slot Man whenever Paul gets here.
That'll be fun discourse.
Yeah, I think the discourse will be spirited. All right, Greg is back. All right, so let's talk ASM. Baja Blast, you're going to give us the rundown per your usual.
Oh shit, I am. Okay. So, hang on. Can you guys hear me, right?
No, you're dead.
Awesome. Okay. So anyways, Amazing Spider-Man number 12, Legacy number 906, written by Zeb Wells, art by John Romita Jr., Scott Hanna, and Marcio Menez. So the book opens before credits with EMTs at the Oscorp warehouse where the Hobgoblin ambushed Norman and Roderick Kingsley last issue. Roderick is fine, but Norman Osborn is on a stretcher, and he's being dragged into the hospital. And for whatever reason, I guess Sin Eater didn't blow out the Goblin formula from Norman's body when he made him a sensitive Norman. But that's okay. We'll ignore that. So at the hospital, Norman is confronted by Peter, who's a little upset that Hobgoblin, or that Norman went alone and gave him the wrong day. And Peter says, Hobgoblin, do this. So I guess Peter just had a stroke in the middle of the hospital. Norman's like, you know what? Yeah, it wasn't Kingsley. So we need to figure out who this new Hobgoblin is. And Peter kind of has a moment where he goes, Norman, you lied to me about the meeting. So I'm kind of, we're kind of on thin ice. Peter goes to Betty first, who reveals to Peter that Ned has been wearing the Hobgoblin costume again, as seen in last issue. And he gets on board his military-industrial complex drone and flies straight over to Ned's little, I guess, safe house is the best word for it. Yeah. And Ned reveals that the Winkler machine, or the Winkler device, the Winkler device is in Ned's safe house. And Peter's like, Ned, you're the Hobgoblin again. You got to stop. Got to get help, buddy. And Ned says, no. If I'm the Hobgoblin, who's that guy? And then Peter's spider sense goes off and the wall gets blown up and the Hobgoblin rams Peter through. And Peter gets into a fight and uses his drone to evade Hobgoblin's lasers. Cuts back to Norman.
Sparkler blasts.
I'm sorry.
I did that for Greg.
You nerd. So Norman's back in the hospital and a nurse comes in and drops off his laptop, apparently. He didn't ask for it, but Norman decides, you know what, please, just leave it anyways. Back at the fight scene, Peter is dodging Hobgoblin's sparklers and uses his weird web bomb things to drop a bunch of spiders on him. So now, like Vulture, he is covered in spiders, man. Peter and Hobgoblin crash into a water tower, and it cuts back to Norman, who is working on his Pepsi Man costume when he gets a notification that there is a spider suit incident log in progress and sees Hobgoblin getting doused by a water tower. And Peter unmasks him to reveal that it's actually Roderick Kingsley. And then Peter gets double teamed, and it's revealed that Ned Leeds makes 2, as 2 hobgoblins surround Peter to close out the issue.
You're welcome.
Yeah. So, okay, let's go around the horn. Grades. Let's start with Greg.
I give it a B plus. I actually liked this a hell of a lot more than I thought I was going to. I'm not a big fan of Ned Leeds being alive again, and I'm not a fan of Norman's current status quo, but I thought it was really well written. The art was terrific, and I like seeing Roderick Kingsley back in character, being the Roderick Kingsley we know. And I read the next one, I know, but that character just shows up so little that it feels like a treat whenever we get him and whenever he's done correctly. So I'm giving it a lot of points.
Oh, sorry.
I give it a lot of points just for that. I like that they're... And the Hobgoblin has always used misdirection and deception as his greatest weapon. I like seeing that in action here as well. And the fight scene was just really fun to watch. John Romita Jr. outdid himself. I mean, I know a lot of people say his best days are behind him. Then he turns in something like this.
Right.
Adam, you're great.
Your thoughts? Speaking of...
I think I'll give it a B. I agree with Greg about Romita Jr.'s art. Like, I think this arc in general is some of the best we've had in this run so far. I like I like that. I like the action. I think the Hobgoblin stuff is interesting. I think the Peter and Norman relationship is kind of odd. That was kind of... something about that was kind of rubbing me the wrong way this time, but I mean, it's a pretty decent issue, pretty solid.
Here's the thing about the Peter and Norman relationship. The only way this works, and granted he is and he should be, but if Peter is a better man than all of us, I mean, there's just certain degrees of
gullibility.
I mean, gullibility, but I like to see Peter as a compassionate human being, but I don't know, it just rubs me the wrong way that he's working with this guy. I can buy he's doing it to try to keep him on a leash, but
yeah, I like that there was at least that kind of aspect to it. Like he's still very on guard about the whole thing, at least in this issue it seemed like he was. But yeah, I don't know, it's a weird relationship, but I mean, it's not something that we're probably going to ever get again. So for now, it kind of just is what it is, I guess.
Okay, I guess I'll go.
Yeah, Neil, go. Sorry,
I'll give it a B plus. I think my main draw for this issue was the Hobgoblin mystery. Like Greg said, Hobgoblin's main weapon has always been deception, and because he hasn't been used meaningfully since Hopeless's Spider-Woman run, there's been a lot of room left, and Spencer's run dropped a lot of hints that something wasn't right with Ned, but this is Wells picking up on that plot thread and running with it, and I think he did a great job of setting us up for misdirection, and then he kind of twisted the knife by showing that there were 2 hobgoblins. I thought that was actually really clever. So congratulations, Zeb Wells. 1 mystery box has been answered spectacularly. Now get to the main one. Also, I'm with you, Greg. I wasn't a huge fan of Ned coming back. I know that was a follow-up on Slott's clone conspiracy plot point, but I think that Peter and Betty actually had a lot of good dialogue in this issue. I think they had some of the best dialogue in the entire issue, especially with Betty kind of acting like an abused housewife, like freaking out about Ned wearing the Hobgoblin suit. It's a very traumatic point in her history, and I think Wells did a really good job of writing that scene out. I don't think the metaphor is one for one, but I think that Wells does a very good job of analogizing it into, my husband is wearing a Hobgoblin costume.
Wells is very hit or miss. When he misses badly. But this arc, I think he's been hitting quite well. And I'm thinking back to when they brought Harry back. I wasn't a fan of that either. And then they didn't know what to do with Harry. One day Harry was here, one day he was there. But granted,
They just made him a
the lead
hipster
thing took a little
playboy.
while, but yeah, but they know what they're doing with it. It feels like there's a direction here.
I feel like Spencer teed it up really well for Wells. Probably not intentionally, because I think he probably had more in the tank for Ned before his run ended. But I think Wells did a really good job of picking up where that run left off and kind of taking that plot point just to its natural conclusion. And we'll see it later in the next issue. And this is kind of cheating because we're talking about the next issue. But I think that they did a really good job of bringing stuff from beyond to supplement that plot point and kind of bring it full circle.
I feel that I should mention that before Nick Spencer's run ended, there was this rumor, these leaks that came out. Some of the leaks turned out to be correct, but one other leak was that Ned was going to encounter Roderick Kingsley again, kill him, and then become the real Hobgoblin. So even though that turned out to be bullshit, that sounds like the type of thing Marvel editorial would do. So it was kind of hanging there in my head when I was reading this, and thankfully it didn't go that way.
This has done a really good job. I think one of the things that I felt, even with the Beyond and then this, that they've done a pretty good job is they've taken plot points and advanced them that in a way that we have really not seen since probably the 90s. Definitely not since the 2000s. Like the JMS run was very clear, other than the MJ subplot, it's a very clear just jump on point. Whereas here, it's taken these nuggets and these pieces that were put in place from the Spencer run and advanced it. Look, the fact that Betty is a mom is an interesting dynamic. To me, it is a very interesting bit. And of course, I mean, the fact that Betty, of all people, had to name the kid Everett.
Winston.
Or Winston, sorry. I don't know why I came up with Everett.
What?
Don't. It's been I have had a weird day.
You've had a weird week, so I'm not mad. I'm just kind of confused how you came to that.
Anyway, but so yeah, look, I enjoyed the Betty scene. I like the fact that Ned is something other than a plot point. Because normally Ned's just a plot. Historically speaking, he's always been a plot point. So actually doing something with him as the Hobgoblin, I think, is really kind of neat, because this is the first time we get to see Ned as the Hobgoblin that's not a retcon. It's an actual moment where he actually gets to be the Hobgoblin. It's not something that we're retroactively, fitting into a box.
And also not in the service of the narrative. It feels like not an organic character moment, but something that is forced upon him by Kingsley. Or
right.
Well, no, we'll see that later. It's not Kingsley, but Kingsley is part of it.
Kingsley, when you're reading this at the time,
you assume that it is Kingsley.
Yeah. So to me, I give this an A-. I think I thought the artwork was dynamic. I thought the artwork in this has been really, really good with Romita. And I feel like he's hitting a stride. Like, it took him a few issues to kind of get the kinks worked out, but I honestly think him and Hannah are knocking it out of the park. The pauses and issues have really helped continue the rejuvenation of Romita in terms of, he's not having to do every issue. He's not having to do, a boatload of issues. He's doing, arcs. And I just think they've done a really good job handling the artwork in general. And I think
my main point of contention is the coloring. And I think Marcio Menyes is a gorgeous colorist. Like, if you've seen his work with Pat Gleason in Beyond, his coloring is amazing. I just think it's too saturated for Romita Jr.
Yeah, I agree, Neil. There's some about his palette choices that there's something.
It warps Romita Jr.'s art. And I love Romita Jr.'s line art in this. I think if we got like a black and white book in the style of like a Frank Miller series, this would go a lot better. Because I think his line, because I saw that page that he did for ASM number 8, I think.
Yeah.
And it looked amazing, like on his Instagram. But there's something about it that's a little off, and I think it's like that really glowing and saturated color palette that Marcio Menyes uses. I don't know.
One thing I want to say actually is, for me personally, I think here a negative I have is personally I think the Oscorp suit is really boring, and I don't like the over reliance on the tech. He doesn't use his webbing at all in this issue, and
he uses a pumpkin bomb.
Yeah, and I'm just like, he's using the glider, to move around. It's like, and that's fine, I guess, but I'm just thinking, I'm kind of this leads into a problem too with the next issue, but I'm kind of hoping that this is going to be some kind of a lesson learned.
We've already learned the lesson, though. We've learned this lesson 5 times in the last 7 years.
I know.
If
sure.
We're designing that costume, well, first of all, it wouldn't be gold, so it wouldn't be this gold goblin stuff. It would be reminiscent of the Iron Patriot or American Sun
talking about
outfit,
we're
only
talking
not
about Spider-Man
ironic.
suit.
We're talking about
Spider-Man
your
suit.
suit, not Norman's
Oh,
although I mean the Gold Goblin costume is okay, but if he's gonna be Gold Goblin, he needs like at least the Goblin
more gold
face.
and less white.
I do think calling him Pepsi Man is a better service to his actual appearance than
Mr. Coffee. Mr. Coffee.
Yeah.
Oh, we can tie it into Death in the Family. Shit. All right, let's go.
The one time, yeah, I don't know.
All right. I don't know. There's also something.
The thing is no.
Sorry.
What I will say. Hold on. Put Mr. Comics' comment up, because I disagree. If he's talking about the Alex Ross armor here, I actually prefer that to this costume. I think the Alex Ross suit in the Parker Industries arc is a lot more the tweaks are tweaked enough that it's more visually interesting than this one, because the Oscorp suit, it's barely different. Like it's basically the regular suit with just a yellow spider on it. A yellow spider on it, and like the weird gold orbs on the arm, which I don't know what that's about.
Break up the arm. They break up the arm's pattern, and it's distract. It's like someone took some like piss globes and then strapped them onto his suit. It looks off. It's
just not visually different enough. And at least Ross, when he designed that new spider armor, he did it in a way, the way the lines are, it's sleeker looking. So there's like a point to it. And yeah, it's got the spider that glows and the eyes that glow, but like there's more of a difference in the design sense than this new Oscorp thing, which is just like the regular suit with like small differences on the boots and the glowing orbs on the arm and the glowing spider on the chest, and the mask is the same, but it's a helmet, and it's just not. I mean, people are like, I think like on Gleason's new comic book day issue that's coming out next year, he draws this suit which he designed, and he's basically just drawn the regular Spidey suit with a yellow spider on it.
He drew it that way in the Hellfire Gala issue too.
It's just not like it's not that interesting to me. It's just boring. Like personally, I just feel it's boring. It's not different enough.
So I want to touch base on that with you, Adam, on the Parker Industries suit. I agree that the Raw suit is better. If you took away the jackass green glow on the eyes and the spider, and took away like a lot of the really glossy sheen and made like a more of a matte finish, it would be a lot more presentable. And part of me understands there was a thematic reason why they went with that suit, because it was part of the All New, All Different era, which was a radical shift from the status quo that they left before Secret Wars. And so Spider-Man needed to visually look the part of not only the primary tech provider of the Marvel Universe, but also just a radical shift away from Spider-Man so that he could return in a blaze of glory to the classic reds and blues.
Right, yeah.
So this just feels like, hey, let's put some piss in his eye. That's how it feels. Like, that's all they did.
I don't even know what an Oscorp designed Spider-Man suit should look like. I mean, thematically, it would almost be more Goblin-esque, but Peter would never go for that at all. It'd be like asking a Jew to wear a swastika.
It'd be like,
oh shit! Jesus.
I'm Jewish.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, no. The one person that
I'm trying to make though
is the resident Jew in this room right now.
You understand the point that I was trying to make there?
Yes. Yeah. That Peter would thematically never wear a suit that looks like a goblin.
Right.
I just think it's weird that Peter has like a literal drone on his back. But to me, it's weird.
That's also corporate synergy crap too, because like, you know, you got Droney from the MCU. Now you bring that type of similar element to Peter in the comics.
Oh, you have it in like the kids cartoon, the Spidey and His Amazing Friends cartoon. He has like a drone.
Oh God, I still haven't myself to watch that.
Oh no, the children's show for 3-year-olds. We haven't watched it yet.
It's not really for us.
But there's a generally I get Zach's point. There is an effort along the entire corporate ladder to streamline Spider-Man into recognizable traits across the brand, and one of those is drone. Because if Tony Stark learned anything, the military-industrial complex is always in the right.
Yeah, that's what Captain America: Winter Soldier was all about, wasn't it?
And Captain Marvel, kind of, but that was also a vehicle for the Air Force. We don't talk about that. Anyways, I think anyone have anything else to add about issue 12?
Yeah, I think we move on to the next issue. Where the hell is Paul?
Actually, Keller actually adds a good point that it's not the first time we've seen Peter on a glider. That is true. He first appeared on a glider, not the first time, but it was in ASM 682 at the beginning of Ends of the Earth. Stefano Caselli drew it. It was just a literal spider glider, and he used it to fight Equinox, and then it later showed up again in ASM 695, I believe, just before Dying Wish. Bruce got his fan letter published in ASM 12. Good work, Bruce.
Congratulations.
And the bug bot has been destroyed twice. Is that thing just meant to job out so we know Peter's in trouble? Like, is that like Worf from Next Generation, where like we know it's a serious threat because Worf's been blown across the room?
Oh, as we all like simultaneously like, thanks.
I don't. What?
Can you guys hear me now?
Yes.
Okay.
Did I get cut off or?
Yes, you did. At least on my end.
Greg and Adam, were you able to hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
But were you able to hear what I said about the drone?
Yes.
That it's meant to basically be a jobber?
Yes, Mr. Worf.
Yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure, because if Zach couldn't hear me, then I just want to make sure. Okay. So I guess we can move on to ASM 13, if everyone's okay with that.
Yeah.
Okay, so ASM 13, same creative team, Wells, Romita Jr., Hannah, and Menez. So Norman is in the hospital, and he's screaming out to a nurse to call the police and send him to the 75th and 193rd Street in Queens. Peter's getting his crap kicked in by the Hobgoblins, and eventually the drone saves him. Jesus Christ, Peter can't fight anybody on his own in this run. First he's saved by Wolverine, then he's saved by a drone. So he basically uses his webs. He uses his webs, Adam. They answered your criticism in the next issue. Congratulations.
Good.
So he uses his webbing to hit a antenna and slingshot himself into one of the Hobgoblins. I think it's Ned. But at this point, they don't matter because they're essentially the same character.
Sometimes it's hard to tell, but the genius actually of the last issue was the lenses popped off of Roderick Kingsley's mask, so that, and you can see that in this one. So he's that one.
I think that's actually I thought that was a coloring error first, and then I
No,
realized you're right.
Yeah, it shows he like punches him in the face, and the lenses.
Oh, the lenses pop off. Yeah,
Yeah.
I did notice at the end of the last issue though, they have when Roderick's putting his mask back on, the eyes are still red. So that was a coloring error on Menez's part, I guess.
Well, I think that might have been. Well, I don't know. It might have been Ned. It's hard. It's hard to tell.
Both of them have red eyes.
Do they? Let me see.
Yeah. But eventually, the hobgoblins get the better of Peter, and they blow up the drone. F in the chat for drone. Does it have a name? It's Bug, okay. Right?
Bug. Yeah, he calls it Bug.
F in the chat for Bug. And Peter realizes
he's really sad about that.
He's really sad about the loss of this drone. Like, it's not a character; it's a plot device.
He's had it for how many issues? How many issues has he had it for? Like 3, 4,
4, I think.
Maybe 5.
Yes,
since Vulture,
he got a number 8. He got a number 8. So yeah, it's been 5 issues. But anyways, Roderick's about to kill Peter with the front of his glider when enter Norman Osborn. Norman Osborn is Pepsi Man. He thirsts for battle. Norman uses purple lasers to blow up Kingsley's glider and send him flinging towards Ned. And eventually they try to make their getaway, but Peter catches up to them and ties them up with a web. Jesus Christ, man. He never apologizes. He never apologizes.
No, he doesn't.
Is that reference?
But Peter gets his hands wrung by Ned. He's gonna literally choke Peter to death, and then Norman sucker punches him and just keeps beating the crap out of him. He's covered in blood, and Peter's like, dude, you gotta chill out. And later on, the police have I don't think they find they don't find either Hobgoblin. They never mention it, but they never
well, Kingsley, they got Ned, but Kingsley pieces off panel.
Oh yeah,
I had to reread that because
Peter. Yeah, I think you're right. Peter grabbed Ned off the glider, and Kingsley got away on Ned's glider.
Yeah, he gets away, and it happens. That's kind of a pro and con for me. Like, the issue happens. I love how fast paced it is, but it's also almost too fast paced. But maybe that's good that I had to go back and reread it. But maybe it's bad. I don't know. Because wait, where'd he go? Yeah, it's a half and half sort of deal.
But Peter goes to see Betty, who says, "Hey, Norman's going to help Ned get legal help." And you got a pretty solid case because Ned was brainwashed. They used the Winkler device. They used the Winkler device to brainwash Ned. And Betty's like, "Didn't you hear, Peter? The police never found a device." And at an unknown location, the Winkler machine is repossessed by Kingsley's goons, who takes off his mask, or the mask is already off, but he sits on the device and says, I'm going to turn off my mind. It's in your hands." And it's revealed that the person who has brainwashing him is none other than our resident Gobby mommy, Ashley Kafka.
No, dun dun dun.
We got one note out.
Yeah. That's funny.
Exactly. You have the soundbite I sent you for that.
I don't have it uploaded.
No.
It's not on the board, but yeah.
All right,
next need to have it up. It's basically Jonathan Frakes saying, "Wow, you are so high."
Hey, hang on,
Mike. You are really high. Really high.
Next issue, enter Ben Reilly as Baja Blast. He quenches the thirst of villains. So yeah, all right, ASM number 13. Grades. Greg, we'll start with you.
A minus.
Okay. Elaborate.
Review that we've done.
First of all, I'm usually impressed when a story takes concepts that I am not a fan of, and I'm not going to say it turns me into a fan of them, but at least makes me intrigued enough. I didn't like the whole Queen Goblin thing. And again, I didn't like Ned being back, and there's a lot of things I was shredding about this, but including the Gold Goblin, I really don't like that, and yet it hooked me just enough that I want to keep reading. I want to know where this is going. I didn't feel like an idiot reading this. I didn't feel like the book was talking down to me or just did not want me as a reader, like often happened during the Slott era. I'm genuinely intrigued by what's happening here, and I actually enjoyed the reveal that Queen Goblin was controlling Kingsley. It also makes what's going on with Ned even more intriguing right now, because is he genuinely working with her? And of course, she said she wants to restore Norman Osborn to being a villain, and that's going to happen sooner or later anyway, after his whole Mr. Coffee, Pepsi Man, Latte of Doom thing is over. I still really hate that costume, though, and I still
we will need to talk about Gold Goblin, because it is tying into Dark Web, and he's facing off against Gabi Mami in that miniseries.
Yeah. I still say that if I were to design that costume, it would have been more reminiscent of the Iron Patriot or American Son, but actually played genuine, because that was when Norman was pretending to be a hero. Now he's actually trying to be one, as opposed to this very bland costume, which I'm sure Hasbro's looking forward to. They're not going to require that much painter engineering for that thing.
Woo! They're looking forward to it. They're looking forward to a cheap action figure to shove out there for $20.
Bruce, I was going to ask that in a minute.
Only $20. Watch, it'll be part of a $70 box set.
They put Gabi Mami and Chasm in that set.
Yeah, and again, also the art was terrific, and this shows that, like I said last time, that John Romita Jr. still got it. I don't care what anyone says. When he delivered here, the action sequences were fun, and the thing with the lenses, that was a great way to keep track of which Hobgoblin you were looking at.
Yeah, Adam raised a very good point on that. I actually didn't notice that at first, but when I'm reading it now, and I just now recognize it. I just thought it was a coloring error on Menez's part.
Dude,
the one thing about that, real quick, Zach, actually.
God, the fact that I'm saying that out loud.
Wait, what did you say, Zach?
I said the fact that I like the way that Romita drew Gabi Mami. And the fact that I said that out loud makes my heart hurt.
Okay, to be fair, we are going to Dark Web, so we are going to need a way to differentiate between Kafka and Madeline.
Yeah, because everyone's going to be like, Queen Goblin. No, I mean Goblin Queen. I mean...
shit!
Yeah.
Gabi Mami. Oh, damn it.
So...
Thanks for the memories.
I give it an A- because it was good, and it pleasantly surprised me.
I almost made Neil spit take.
I noticed.
I would have, if you made me like spit take all over my really nice keyboard, I would have driven down to Baytown to strangle you.
That's fine.
Have you ever gone into a book or a movie or anything prepared to hate it, almost wanting to hate it, and then just being pleasantly surprised by it?
You know, look, I was looking forward to seeing Romita draw Hobgoblin again and do a Hobgoblin story, but it feels like this is, when Wells is not doing when he's doing street level stuff and the crime stuff and delving into the villainy of Spider-Man's villains, especially villains that we've not had a featured role in a long time, it feels like, okay, this is the parts of Wells's run that I'm like, okay, he gets the villains. Is his Peter right? No. We know that there's a reason for it. We're still going to wait until, early next year to finally figure out what that is. But the Spidey and the villains are right. And that's the thing, that's the point that I feel like we need to hammer home. The Peter Parker stuff isn't right, but the Spidey stuff is right, and Wells has shown that he can do Spidey well. And the Carrick 2001 says the villains are the best part of the series so far, and I wouldn't disagree. Look,
you've gone on record saying that Tombstone was easily the best part of that arc.
Oh, Tombstone was far and away the best part of the arc, bar none. But the fact is we're now at issue 13, and we've only had really 2 arcs. It's been very decompressed.
We've technically had kind of not 4.
Well, to be fair, though, hold on, Neil. To be fair to that, like, there's kind of been, I think the Tombstone thing was the most decompressed. The Vulture thing was like what 2 or 3 issues, and this was 3 issues. And then we had the tie-ins, so it's kind of I kind of like the 3-part story deal. Yeah, I think that's fine.
We had talked about it on a couple of episodes, like during the Tombstone arc, that if the arc had cut off like those first 2 issues that just wasted our time, and just started on issue 3, I think the arc would have been a lot more well received because it kind of throws into the action and kind of lets you catch up as you go. But
Ramin does draw incredible fight scenes, and I just feel like that.
Yeah.
Well,
the best art in this is the fight scenes. Like there's just incredible stuff happening in those.
Can I mention a con real quick?
Yeah.
I kind of hate how Peter's getting bailed out every fight by something.
I didn't like that either. That was
like, I don't mind Pepsi Man coming in and saving Peter, but I do mind it after Peter's been saved by Hakeem in Wells's arc. He's been saved by Norman when he's literally screaming to the phone, "Norman, I'm going to die.
Mm-hmm.
Please help me, Norman Sama. I kneel."
That's becoming a pretty annoying trait that Peter has to be bailed out. Peter, at this point, look, I can understand.
Maybe if he used his webbing more, which he uses like once in this issue, finally.
If Peter were like 3 years, because like canonically, he's what, 25?
Hopefully.
Somehow still.
This is a guy that's been doing this shit for 10 years.
25.
I would think he'd be like 28, but I remember.
According to Slott's run, he should be in his 30s by now. But then, somehow Spencer's run wound back the clock to him being mid 20s, and now he's officially 25 as of the beginning of Beyond.
Yeah,
I'd say he was.
Peter has the same disease that Billy Connors had.
I think so. I'm trying to remember when they said 25 exactly, but I know that 25 has been mentioned.
Yeah, Billy Connors got to be like a teenager, I think, and then he basically went back to being like 8 years old or 10 years old or something.
Carrick brings up a good point. The 2 tie-in issues back to back, and then we're going into an event is just too much. It's really hurt this run so far, and he's been generally enjoying it. That's true. That is a true statement. And that was a complaint that we had
with Judgment Day. I think was the big one.
Judgment Day, which again, I felt like that the 2 tie-in issues were stronger than I expected. I actually had pretty low expectations for those issues, and they did pretty well.
Here, real quick, I'm going to push back. I think that the Judgment Day issues on their own, isolated in a closed system, are solid issues. That said, in terms of the pacing of the main story, they grind the plot to a halt. And that's the main problem. Is that it doesn't answer the mystery, it doesn't move anything forward. Is that they're solid issues on their own, both as an Act 3 to the Hellfire Gala one-shot, and then as an extension of the main Judgment Day event that was going on at the time, which is now over. Go read it, by the way. That's a really good event. But on their own, they grind the book to a halt. And
well, it's just
the pacing issue.
Or 600. 900. I mean, 900 ground the book to a halt. We skipped over that. Like when we talk about this run, but
it was essentially just a one and done. It really didn't have any real meaning. It just
it was like the annual that it was inspired by, kind of.
Because it was just an annual. It shouldn't have been a centennial. It should have been an annual.
Yeah.
Perhaps.
to me also, and I kind of feel that the dark web's going to grind this narrative story to a halt. I have no expectations going into that.
It's gonna the problem with dark web is it's gonna decompress everything because Wells is essentially handing off his plot points to different writers. Cantwell's handling Gold Goblin, Mary Jane and Black Cat are being handled by McKay. And actually, I'm going to be honest. Now that I've seen more of it, the less I'm looking forward to it. Even if it's McKay, who's is an amazing writer, he made me care about Moon Knight. I don't care about it because it's just tossing the mystery off to somebody else to solve it for Wells.
We will definitely be covering that in on Patreon first.
Yeah.
We got to figure out how we're going to do that.
We need to figure out how we're gonna structure dark web, and we'll kind of talk about it later once we get past issue 14. Mm-hmm. And I plan to have a game plan for that I'm hoping Zach will sign off on because I have a plan written out. But
I'll think about it. I don't know if I want to give it autonomy.
I haven't sent it to you yet.
Neil, frenemies. That's how this works.
I am the tiger. He is my leash.
Yes.
That sounded really weird. Let's see.
10 have been main story and 602 tie-ins. Yeah, that's pretty bad.
Because the issue with dark web is that there's no like single main storybook. It's just the Prelude issue, ASM, and a bunch of other tie-in books that include like X-Men and Mary Jane Black Cat and Venom of all characters, who I'm not even sure how he's tying into.
It's a weird.
This.
It is just a weird kind of setup they've got going for that, I guess.
Yes, we got ASM and 4 tie-in books with no real structure. Then it's going to be the end.
Because ASM is basically the main story, right?
I don't even know if that's the case.
Yeah.
All we know is that the books are there. We know that Venkman. No.
Where's the bonk? I added it to the Discord. Bonk. The bonk emoji.
But what was I talking about? Dark web, right?
Yeah.
But we don't know anything about how dark web is going to be structured, or like if it's going to be the main ASM is going to be the main book, and then everything else is side pieces. Okay, I'll shut up.
No, that was for Venkman. That wasn't for you. But
I thought you were telling me to shut up and keep talking and move on to something else.
No.
But I don't know. I'm kind of concerned for how dark web is going to turn out, and then we have to deal with the fact that immediately after we're changing writers for a bit. We're getting a Joe Kelly and the Dodsons.
2 issues.
Coming in.
2 issues.
Well, two issues, yes, but we're not going to get any answers until I'm guessing ASM 25 at this rate.
I didn't know about the Dodsons thing.
Yeah, Joe Kelly is coming back to write ASM for 2 issues, and he's bringing Terry and Rachel Dodson with him as the ARC team.
Listen, I'm down for Terry and Rachel. Joe Kelly.
Yeah. This is the man who wrote Peter and Felicia breaking into a hotel to have sex.
He also wrote Grim Hunt. He also wrote. He did write the Rhino.
Flowers for Alexi in the Flowers
for Alexi. He did write that. So they weren't all like foul balls, but
the main issue is that these are going to be Peter and Felicia issues, and we all know what he did with Peter and Felicia, and no one liked it. So I'm trying to figure out like how.
But okay,
how in a post Brand New Day world Kelly is going to write them.
My curiosity is, now that she knows and that Peter and her are now intimate, like they know each other's identities, there is a relationship that's been kind of established. I am interested to see how that dynamic is going to be written with Kelly, because one of the big issues with Kelly's writing of Felicia and Peter before was the elephant in the room of One More Day, her not knowing the identity of Peter, and all of the continuity jumbling that was occurring. So I'm okay with if the story is something that serves the two of them together, okay, I'm kind of vaguely interested, but I am also terrified it's going to be bad.
You want to hear a hot take? I think Peter and Betty had more chemistry in this run than Peter and Felicia do, especially after number 11. Number 11 was weird because it was like Peter getting like shaky knees asking her out on a date when they have slept together and dated before. You don't remember that, Zach?
Yeah, yeah.
Peter's like, he was like, oh, I asked her out. Ooh. Now, granted, that's more relatable to me, but I'm not Spider-Man. I don't have Giga Chad's strength and
same. Yeah.
I am going to push back on that slightly. When you've been in a monogamous relationship for an extended period of time,
it's hard to get back in the swing.
Trust me. That
is fair.
There is a level, especially if you're going back to somebody that you've had intimacy with, it is not easy to try to muster up that courage because of the baggage that surrounds it.
True.
And ladies and gentlemen, the host of the Comic Binge YouTube channel, which we are I did not mean to simulcast on. Paul, my bad.
Are you simulcasting?
Yes, we are simulcasting the show.
That's fantastic.
Are we stream rating? Shit.
Yeah, we are simulcasting on both the Comic Binge and the Spideydude Radio Network YouTube channel.
I'm all good. I'm all good for it. It's all good. We're all in this together, right? Right. Come on.
Yes.
Now.
So, ladies and gentlemen, the host of the Comic Binge YouTube channel and podcast,
the host of the channel we've co-opted for tonight.
Yeah, that we hijacked. But yeah, no, it wasn't a hijacking. We've been planning on doing this for a while. We haven't co-op.
There's a connotation difference with.
Yeah, but welcome, P Thug, aka Paul.
Hello, sir. Yeah, hello. But miss you guys. It's been a while.
It has been a while. Have we done this on the second issue? I don't think we have.
We haven't done.
Which
we
one?
haven't done adjectives yet.
Okay, so what is your grade briefly, and tell us your thoughts on the first issue, Paul, and then we'll give our grades on the second issue.
The first issue is it ASM 7?
Yes.
Yeah. It's been a while since I've read. Its life is busy right now, so things are kind of crazy. But if that was the one where he first takes on the Hobgoblin, right?
It's the one where the two Hobgoblins are at the end of the issue.
Yeah, right. But he takes on the first one.
Yeah, he takes on the first one and realizes, surprise, and it's like this Always Sunny. Oh shit, there were two of them.
Yeah.
So I'm just looking over it because the nice thing about this series, in my opinion, is that it has been pretty fluid to me. Like they kind of run together in a good way for the most part, So and again, I don't mean that in a derogatory way. I mean that in the best way possible. Yeah, I would say the series for the most part. For this issue particularly, I'm trying to bring it up. There were a couple things in a couple of these issues where I was like, but give me 1 second here. But no, the one thing I'm going to say about bringing this up is JRJR's art is just, to me, it's I don't think it's been as good as we've gotten it recently. It's like it feels like he's back, at least in my opinion. It feels like he's back. It really does.
Yeah, I agree.
It's really nice to. It's really nice to see. Oh, it's 11 and 13. Excuse me. I was, or 12 and 13. I was getting all confused here. Issue 12. Where the hell did issue 12 go? That's weird. But no, like it's one of those things where I've been really, really, really happy that we've gotten this new JRJR and new in that it seems like he's back. Like it's definitely not like JMS era, like I don't think it's like that, but it feels like we're getting that a better version of Spider-Man. Yeah, here we go. I remember it now. Yeah, it feels very cinematic, but in a good way. If that makes any sense. Like a lot of panels that they're doing, it's letting JR be really just kind of have his way with it. That's what it feels like in the best way possible.
Yeah.
Especially this first issue. And I just love how it feels like he's telling the story, and Zeb's just like, yeah, here you go. I'll fill everything in. The weird thing I would say, and this is a kind of a problem I think in a lot of this modern comics in general, is that it does kind of fall into the whole like I read this thing in like 5 minutes. That's probably my biggest criticism of it. I love the fact that Zeb's letting JR kind of do his thing, but I will say that I feel like the art's so good I don't really care. But I will say that I like with Zeb's narrative and everything, but it definitely feels like we're getting a little bit of a short change on the writing aspect. And I'm not saying it's his fault in the sense to where you need to do more, you need to pad this out. Like I don't want him to do that. But I definitely feel like this issue in particular, it was like I breezed through this thing pretty quick. But that being said, the art makes it worth it. His art is fantastic in this. And I gotta tell you guys, I love the spider stuff. I love all of the spider gadgets. And I didn't think I was gonna like the Spider-Man and Norman relationship as much as I am. It's weird. Because if you were to tell me this before, I'd be like, okay, yeah, it's gonna be done. It's gonna be tired, whatever. But I'm really trying to get behind it and it's almost making me kind of feel bummed when we do eventually get this, eventual, Green Goblin turn. They're building it up the right way, and I like the spider guy, the spider glider. I forgot what he calls it.
Bug.
Bug. Yeah, Bug. I like Bug. It's just interesting. This is a different. I mean, I'm engaged. I'm not like, okay, let's get this over with. It's like, not like the Mary Jane Paul stuff. So I'm gonna give this comic.
I forgot about that.
Yeah. Yeah, you of all people, right? No,
I legit forgot it existed. You reminded me.
I think we all gave it a B or B plus. So we're
yeah,
all kind of on board with that.
Yeah, I think I feel bad saying this because I don't want to be like, you got to pad this out, Zeb, like kind of a thing. I don't want him to feel like, or any writer to be honest, should feel they have to force things in to make up for like, well, there's not enough dialogue in this, right? Like you don't want to do that. But as someone who reads comics a lot, I do appreciate getting to the into like the people's heads a little bit more. And again, I've gone on nauseum about how I think that's a lost art in comics. This would really help from that, I think, especially with the Hobgoblin perspectives. They could even hint a little bit like of inner monologue, but everyone's so afraid of having word balloons or thought balloons, where it's like, oh, can't have those. Those are dumb. It's like, no, they're not. Just give me something, me something,
I think part of it is Bendis. Bendis kind of poisoned the well for like long thought balloons because he kind of just made it like words, and it lost all meaning. And now everyone's kind of afraid to have like monologues.
Well, I mean, I to be honest, I mean, I don't know if it's that, man. Maybe it is because I know Bendis gets a lot of crap for it, but so did Kevin Smith, right? Like, I mean, there's writers out there that aren't afraid of having long dialogue. It's just a trend. It seems like it's way more of a trend now than ever. Like I feel like Jed McKay, when I read Moon Knight, is probably the best person in modern comics and mainstream comic books for superhero stuff that kind of gets the balance. Because I feel like there's so many different characters that they're interacting to each other. I'm actually getting good characterization and development, but it's also not just it's not pigeonholed to being like, well, we're a talkie book or we're an action book, like this kind of a thing. I do like it when Zeb kind of does, kind of expresses it a little bit. And I think I want to say the next issue is a little bit better, actually, but maybe I'm wrong. But I remember liking this next issue a little bit more. Spoiler alert. But yeah, I would say that my biggest criticism is basically it's B plus because it just does feel like I'm reading this book in like 5 minutes. But the art is so good, it makes up for it, to be honest. It's so freaking good.
Actually, I'm kind of realizing this, and I just want to butt in for a sec. One of the things I am a bit upset about is that Peter Norman is having like the Bruce Jason Todd relationship where Peter's like, Norman, stop being brutal. You gotta stop being up villains. And it feels like Norman. The difference is like it's a lapse of in control on Norman's part, but it feels like I'm kind of just going through we don't do things the bad guy's way because we're better. And I think honestly, Gold Goblin delves a lot more into Peter and Norman's relationship than this issue does, for better or worse.
Man, I need to read. I haven't read Gold Goblin. We're not reviewing that today, are we?
No, we're not. But I did read it, and it's a much better examination of Norman. I feel like Wells for the Peter and Norman stuff is kind of going through the motions, where where Gold Goblin is like the real meat of Norman's psychology in the post Sin. What was the storyline from Spencer's run? Sin's Remains.
Yeah, Sin's whatever. Sin's insert whatever.
Last Remains.
Have.
Last Remains. Sorry.
It's really good. I like Last Remains.
But it feels like Gold Goblin is the first real follow up to that plot line instead of just going through the motions of Norman suddenly being a good guy and having to do going through the Jason Todd arc of we don't beat our villains. You know what I mean?
Well, I would say that the only reason why I it's not as Jason Todd Batman relationship to me is because Peter is treading a very fine line, and I actually like that he's just like he's so worried, like he really wants it. It just shows you how great of a person Peter is because he's trying so hard to trust Norman, and I do like that thing where it's like Peter's seen enough in his life that he maybe could see Norman being a good person at some point. He wants to believe it, but he knows he can't trust it, so he's just going to jump at everything. So I do like that aspect because the one clever thing I think Zeb has done, he's really, at least to me, maybe I'm alone on this, and God help me, that one tie-in issue with all the big that was, I forgot what the hell it's called, Judgment Day, whatever it is. Judgment Day, that really gives you a good insight. He's been giving us a good insight of Norman Osborn that we're not waiting for him to like portray Peter. It really does feel like he's being like hounded by the ghost of his past, and he's a changed person. Like that whole Sin Eater thing really did happen. And I gotta be honest, guys, now we brought it up, I'm sorry I've kind of taken over. I apologize. But one of the things I kind of thought about, thanks for reminding me actually, Neil, is this whole relation with Peter and Norman, and I really do feel like he's a good person. I think the Gold Goblin's an extension of that, which we'll get into a little more in the next issue. The one thing I'm going to say is I'm starting to think that whole Sin Eater thing is true and that he really is changed. But maybe, and I know everyone's going to be like, oh God, here we go, Paul, Mr. Connect Everything. But this is how I do it, baby. But I'm going to tell you, I think I'm wondering what if Mephisto is behind in like Green Goblin returning in some way, since he's already a part of his origin. What if he's the one that puts Mephisto back or Green Goblin back into Norman and kind of unleashes that? And that is tied.
I'm going to push back. Occam's razor says Gabi Mommy's going to do it because she's already got a plan in motion to put his sin back in him.
Yeah, and that's valid. That's valid. But I'm just saying it's possible. I don't know if they're going to go that far, right? Because they're tipping their hand right now. And it feels like this is going to be the long game between Green Goblin and Spider-Man as far as that. Again, I wouldn't be shocked, but the only reason why I don't think it's going to happen, it's too soon still. Too soon.
I don't know if it's going to happen right now, but we do know that like Gabi Mommy has a plan. Like she literally says in issue 13 that she's going to make Norman pay for what he's done. Or was it? It was 93. ASM 93 brought it up first. But in this new issue, she says his sins have come back. Norman's Osborn's sins have come back to haunt himself. So, and she's also going to be fighting Norman in Gold Goblin number 2 and 3. So we're kind of already aware that.
Yeah, I think
Kafka has the plan already.
But Gold Goblin, but to me, I think you need to expand Gold Goblin more. I just don't. I mean, again, I could be wrong. But I'm just going to say this. I think that there's a legitimate chance that this whole thing with Norman's going to be a more longer game. And I think that's kind of Zeb's. I think that's going to be Zeb's main through line for the next couple of years is building up the Norman-Peter relationship to tear it down. And I think that's, but at the same time, not in the sense to where it's going to be Norman doing like, because that's too predictable. Doing something like even Goblin Mommy or with Mephisto, either one, you have to do it longer than I think what's going on right now. So I think it's going to be a while. And if it's going to be long game, I think that it could tie back into one more day potentially. So that's just a very, very my own self-awareness a little bit with that one. But anyway, I think it's a good, solid issue. I just kind of skimmed through the last issue that next issue we're going to do, and I definitely I'll wait for that. But yeah, I give us a strong B+ because the art and I think the story's been fun. I love the ending, and yeah, I'm ready to get in the next issue.
What is everybody's grades on the second issue? We've already kind of given our reviews, Paul, so you can kind of once we give our grades.
I'm sorry.
We've already
A-.
I think we already gave our grades, didn't we?
I don't think we did for the second one. We did for the first.
I gave it a B+.
A-.
A- as well.
I'd probably give it maybe a B-.
Okay.
Okay.
So,
anyways,
all right. Wait, I'd give this a B+.
B+. Okay, Paul. All right. So I'm glad that we waited for a minute to bring Paul back on because Paul, we're going to be talking about Slotman, aka
Discourse.
I didn't give my last review of the last issue.
I thought that was all bundled together. So.
Oh, okay.
Hold on, really quick. That was all bundled together. And I thought I was doing one. I apologize. So yeah, but you know what? I ended up being all together. The one thing I'm going to say, as I forgot that last issue was even worse than the first one as far as like dialogue. Like there's hardly any dialogue in it. It's just like it's a quick little thing. So it actually got worse. But in the end, it's all the same. I'm loving the art, and I think Zeb's getting away with it because he's got a good team up with JRJR going. So
he can't keep getting away with it. He can't keep getting away with it.
I get that reference.
I don't know that.
Adam, you're muted. It's Breaking Bad.
Oh wait, who's that character?
It's Jesse.
Oh, it's been a while since I love Breaking Bad. But it's been a minute.
Okay, Adam, what were you saying?
Before we move on, I have a hot take about the covers of this arc, this 3-issue arc. I think that they should have swapped 13 and 11. So I think that 13 should have been the cover to 11. And 11 should have been
because it literally gives away Gabi Mommy being behind everything.
Because at least because I think like she's revealed in 13, and I think if you have the issue 11 cover for 13, it makes more sense. And Norman being in peril like he was in issue 11 makes more sense for the cover of 11 than it does for the issue to 13 when Spidey is actually in peril and Norman is the one who saves him in 13. So that's another cover hot take for me.
I don't just
want to throw out there.
They have not done well with the covers. Like, there's been some covers that have not made any sense, like issue 2's cover.
Nothing to do with anything.
I still say that should have been issue 1's cover. But it would have, like I said, it was just too. I mean, I'm probably wrong, but I feel like issue 2's cover being issue 1's cover nails the tone of issue 1. But Nick Lowe was like, we can't put this as the cover for issue 1 because everyone's gonna flip out.
You're not wrong. I mean, you're not wrong at all.
I feel like that would have sold more copies, though.
Actually, yeah, it's true.
Yeah. All right. So,
anyways, discourse.
We got it in spades.
You won it. We got it.
Yeah, that went pretty well for 2 issues. Hour 13. All right, let's do the final issue of the evening, the main event. We have
the end of the Spider-Verse. Oh, Dan, please don't threaten me with a good time.
I didn't read it.
You didn't miss much.
It's like, well, get out.
So, Spider-Man, adjective list number 2, legacy number 158, written by Dan Slott, line art by Mark Bagley, inks by John Dell, and colors by Edgar Delgado. So we'll begin the issue, and I'll do this quick because otherwise Paul will bust my chops for this. So in Slott's typical lack of subtlety, the web of Spider-Man goes, "Wowee, Mr. Stark! Thank you for inviting me to the Worldwide Engineering Brigade! Wowee! Thanks, Mr. Stark! Wow!" And he breaks into the lab and sees his drone broken. And all these other Spider characters, it's Spider-Man India, Spider-Ham, and Miguel are all Shathra zombie things. Basically, Noir, Mayday, and Punk, along with Spider-Gwen. Is she Ghost Spider still? I don't remember. She's still Ghost Spider? Okay.
Yeah.
Basically, one extended fight scene until Aranya shows up and casts magic to save Peter from Noir. They jump through a portal, and Shathra and Nestling plot their next move. Peter and Co. Arrive on 616 Beta, which looks like an absolute color-ridden nightmare. And Moreland does an exposition, or Moreland says, "You know what? I'm going to exposit it a bit, but first, let me introduce you to Dan Slott's OCs." And we're introduced to Craven Spider, Spinstress. Is it Spinstress, the fairy tale Spider Woman?
Yes.
I feel like she knows because Kelly did an entire Satellites episode talking about how great her issue was. Night Spider, Sun Spider, and was it not Master Weaver, Web Weaver. Sorry, the gay one. I'm sorry. That's how they marketed it. That's how they marketed him.
That's fair.
Character, so I'm not I can't even be mad.
Basically, Felicia or Night Spider goes, "Haha, I'm still your utility belt," and then Madam Web decides, "Hey, Moreland, Peter Parker is the chosen one from the Primal Strand." None of this makes any sense to me. I feel like I'm my mind is evaporating as I read this issue. Cindy gives Peter a new costume to replace his damaged Oscorp one, back to the classic reds and blues. And Moreland says, "Hey, here's some well-timed exposition." And he explains that he went back to Loom World using Amalgam Spider-Boy's severed arm.
Rip Spider-Boy, man.
Rip Spider-Boy, I guess. And returns to Loom World to reveal that Spider-Man, who previously adopted the baby inheritors. Jesus, it's like I'm reading a Muppet Babies script. Jesus, this is like Watchmen Babies V for Vacation.
I don't think Slott wrote that though. That's part of Spider-Geddon Part 2.
No, I know, but baby inheritors just sounds like Muppet Babies, or not Muppet Babies.
YouTube search Muppet Babies Temple of Doom sometime.
But she ate all of the inheritor babies.
Damn.
And so now Moreland went to attack Shathra in her realm, where I guess the slingers have been waspinized. Jesus Christ.
Yep.
And Moreland arrives on Earth 616 Beta seeking help, and the spiders all seek their next move. And then Miles turns into a wasp and says that she can see you now. And it turns out that every spider except the ones in that church are all waspinized, including Insomniac, Spider-Man, Steel Spider, Spider-Ock. Everyone's been waspinized.
The Scarlet Spider.
I think that's Web Spider-Man, WEB Spider-Man. Mangaverse Spider-Man's in there. Basically, everyone you care about has been turned into a wasp thing.
Damn.
To be continued. And the sad thing is, I know this will be today's solicits came out for February. We know this arc is going until February. God help me. Okay, I'm gonna give my grade first. I'm giving this an F.
Ooh.
Oh my god.
Ooh.
And I'm gonna explain why. I know this sounds.
Let's get ready to rumble.
This sounds particularly harsh, but
hang on. Let's give the grades and then we'll come back because I know that there will be some pushback. All right, I'm giving this a C-, but only because of Bagley's art.
I'm giving it a C.
I gave it an F, and I'm going to include Bagley in there. I'll elaborate later, but
Jesus.
Oof. Paul, grade.
Yeah, give it a B.
All right.
Greg. Oh
Respectable.
wait, Greg didn't read it. Well, I'll just give him a C and average it out. Okay. So I guess I should defend my thesis.
All right.
Yeah.
Let's sit back now. I'm just gonna put my hands back up and be like, all right, dance monkeys.
Okay. Get your what kind of cigars are out there?
Popcorn.
Get a Cuban
ready,
cigar.
right, Paul?
Get a Cuban cigar and listen to me.
Julietta.
This is not popcorn worthy.
This sounds like popcorn talk.
So first off, the art, it's not as bad as it could have been, but this is nowhere near Bagley's best. And part of it is Edgar Delgado's coloring. Delgado has two colorists he's good with. That's Patrick Gleason and Humberto Ramos. Anybody else, he looks really off with. It's oversaturated. It's all over the place. And the coloring, once they get to 616 beta, is awful. The characters that are there clash awfully against that weird like 1960s retro look.
I mean,
I get what they were going. I get what that's what they were going for, but it's
Thank you, Adam.
But the environments are so static and like discolored around them, and I get that's
I get the point.
I get that's the point, but it doesn't look good.
Nuance. I hate it.
I get it's the point. I just don't like it. It looks really awful, and it clashes. I get that's the point.
There was probably a better way of conveying it. It does come across as a bit awkward.
Like if they had made every character like with that color style, I think it would have worked a lot better. But as is, Delgado's coloring makes it really hard to. I had my eyes hurt trying to separate the characters from the environment, and not in a good way. Not to mention John Dell's inks are all over the place this issue. I've never been a fan of John Dell's inks before, especially with Bagley's prior issues on Spencer's run, but this issue was kind of the linchpin for me as far as saying that I think John Dell is the worst inker Marvel has on their lineup, bar none. I think I'm at that point. I'm actively willing to say I have my worst colorist, Maury Hollowell, and my worst inker, John Dell. I'm going to draw the line in the sand right there. And honestly, as far as pacing went, this issue is also all over the place. It felt like 6-8 pages of very poorly constructed action scenes, and then like the rest of it was just poorly paced exposition that was meant to catch people up on what Moreland was up to. I guess that's the point. What?
No, and I don't disagree. I don't like how these first two issues have been constructed. To me, it comes across as a little lazy to start an arc and then immediately go into flashback. And that's what all this was like the vast majority of the issue is Moreland's backstory of how he becomes an ally. Again, clunky as shit because this is the law of diminishing returns with Moreland.
And Moreland is inherently a character who is only good for one story, and he's long outlived his expiration date.
I don't disagree. Hang on. You can write Moreland in other stories when Moreland is a force of nature. The problem is when you take away that force of nature element, he is lessened. His impact is severely lessened. Does that make sense? Like, you can write Moreland in a similar enough way to what JMS did, but by making him less of a force of nature and trying to give him a personality, to me, really, really makes the characterization suffer. And on one hand, I'm glad to see that he is now it. Like the fact that we had, the inheritors finally get killed off in off-panel land. Great, cool. Moreland's the only one left.
That said, I feel like Slott has tried to make me care about the inheritors for 7 years now, and this was just like another edgy attempt to make me care. Like, you're supposed to care that the inheritors were eaten. Oh no!
No, I was not.
No, you're wrong. I don't think that was the intent at all, actually.
Then
But
what was
continue.
the intent?
The
but
intent was to show the intent. Hold on. The intent was to show Shahara, whatever her name is, being ruthless. That's the whole intent. It's not the fact that they're the inheritors. The fact that she just did this at all. She ate these kids. That's the whole point. It's not about the inheritors are insignificant.
Nah, I disagree. I think part of it was Slott going like, "See, I got rid of them. Aren't I so
No,
great? I listened
you
to
have
the
to give
fans."
Morlun. No, Neil. You have to give Morlun a reason to join the Spiders. And what other way to do it than kill his family?
I mean,
come on, man.
Come
on, man.
The existential.
Come on.
Shut up, Paul. Let me. He is an existential threat to him. If Shathra eats all the spiders, he has no food. It's literally you could have tied into the force of nature.
Character emotional clearance, man. You can't just be like, oh, I haven't joined it for no reason, but you can criticize Slott for like, oh, being so clunky because oh my god, I actually write and explain things. This is stupid.
Again, look, I feel like it is not a mistake to cull the herd of the inheritors. I felt like one of my biggest criticisms of the inheritors as a concept was the fact that you give Morlun, who by his very nature was a force of nature, now he's got this whole family thing. And on its surface, I understand what you're saying, Paul. Don't discount what I'm saying. It's why I didn't give it an F. I gave it a C because it kind of progressed the story, but with this coming out once a month, I kind of just am like, oh yeah, it's not grabbing me and enticing me and making me excited. The other thing that kind of annoys me is that we've seen Shathra since her first appearance, but nobody wants to. She was a character that was shown.
It was weird. It was not. It was a weird next appearance. Even when I went back and read it again, I remember being because I love that character. I remember being like, "This is not the same character." It was very odd how Yost used her with Scarlet Spider.
My understanding is that Yost has started that plot point, and I think there was going to be a big arc between the two.
In New Warriors or something.
Well, no, it's going to be in year 3, and then they dump the New Warriors on him assignment. And my understanding is that his long-term plan for Scarlet Spider was in year 3 he was going to address the Araceli plot and the Shathra plot, and then he had to hastily smash the Shathra stuff into the last 2 issues of Scarlet Spider, so that way he could set it up for New Warriors.
Yeah, I to be honest, I think as someone who loves Shathra, her name, I can't even say her name right, but again, everything else. But I can tell you, I feel like Slott nails it way more than Yost did.
I don't disagree. Look, I think they've done. Look, her being a threat to me is like, all right, cool. I am interested, but I'm not overtly excited to get the next issue. This didn't grab me in a way that made me feel like that I should be enticed to pick up the next issue, if that makes sense.
Also, this is kind of a minor gripe, but Slott can't write the other Spider characters. They're all very one note, and I think that Spintra's by default, because she has the most interesting dialogue scheme, is the most interesting of them. But Sun Spider, Kraven, Hunter Spider, Night Spider, and Master Weaver, they all have one personality trait. I'm Kraven, I'm Black Cat, but because Slott can't write women, I have no personality. I'm the cripple, and I'm gay. That's it.
I do feel like that's...
in Slott's sense, though, writing a team book of any kind is not...
You kind of have to do that.
Yeah.
I feel like
exactly.
Thank you. I wasn't a fan of it, per se, but I understand the reason for it, because this is a new series to get new people to read. So and some people are going to see these characters for the first time. So you kind of have to
I don't even remember half these characters.
Well, the thing is, they're new. They just came out this year in the tie-in, the Edge of Spider-Verse thing that was before this.
And that's my issue is that like these characters were a lot more fleshed out in their Edge of Spider-Verse.
Well, that's because
and I know you have to water them down. But if this is your first time coming into this book, I know Paul, you didn't read the Edge of Spider-Verse tie-ins, did you?
No, and I had no problem with these characters. I loved them. I had no problem with anything.
Well, that sounds like
I
no
got,
problem.
and here's the thing though, like when I read this, I had no idea there. You guys are telling me, I'm like, oh crap, I had no idea. I know this is the first appearance. I'm like, I love this, and I think because Slott did a good job of explaining who they were very quickly. It's not like he has 80 pages to tell the story in the second issue. He's got 22 pages. You've got to this is a very much a conveyor belt of lack of a better term, a conveyor belt of creativity when you're doing monthly comic books. And I get it's not everything's not going to hit with everybody, and that's fine. The thing is, for me, with Slott, and you don't have to like his style. Like that's whatever. But I feel like people are being brutal on him just because of things that he has to do. Like, God forbid, give exposition of something in a 22-page comic book that he's setting up from the first issue. It's like, of course, he has to explain it at some point. He can't. You guys would rail against him if he said, "Oh, Merlin's teaming up with him for no reason." Slott did it again. He didn't write very well because he didn't give Merlin
that's a bad faith argument, and you know it, Paul.
Hang on. Whoa, back for a second. I think if he had peppered this exposition in with the ongoing narrative, there is ways of
ongoing narrative. That's what I don't get. It's like you go into it, and you're like, you immediately get okay. There's more inheritors, or he has to explain it because Merlin came in and saved him, and then it's like, what happened? Why are you saving us? Well, let me tell you. Like every other comic book I've read in this, where it's not mind blowing. It's not Watchmen, Alan Moore, Grant Morrison, insert whatever pretentious comic writer you want to put into it. That's fine. But to rail against it for doing what just a normal comic book writer and superheroes would do, it's I'm like, okay, I don't get it. I just don't get it.
I'm glad that it's now and not, I think it's better to get it out of the way now.
I don't know.
And it has been. So there you go.
Part of my writer brain, though, is looking at this and saying you could have condensed these 8 pages of exposition into at least half of that and move the plot along much faster.
Well, where's that against Zeb Wells then? Zeb Wells did the same thing. It's that talk about condensing. You could probably do that whole comic in 15 pages.
We've made that argument before.
We did criticize that in the Vulture arc, and you could have probably condensed some of this Hobgoblin arc down.
I feel like before you came on that you could have condensed the first arc into 3 issues.
But the thing is, you guys aren't railing against Zeb as much as you are Slott, because Slott is your guys' hatred enemy. That's all I'm saying. There's a bias. Listen, I can say it too. I'm biased. I prefer Slott's whole thing. But if you were coming into it fresh, I don't think you'd be as hostile as you are now. I'm just saying.
And to be fair, there is a bias, but part of it is because we have an established pattern with Slott. Slott starts off with a really good first issue, then he drags the plot for 4 issues, and then the 6th issue, he has to wrap it all up in 22 pages, and he stumbles and trips on his own dick because he's too busy trying to wrap it up because he spent so much time stalling.
One of my frequent criticisms of Slott has been how the pacing has always been very uneven. And I'll say this: the first issue was a lot less quick of a read than the second issue. The second issue, this issue felt like it was. I felt very, very underwhelmed in terms of the amount of time it took me to read it. But by the time I got to the end of the issue, I was like, "Oh wow, we're at the end of the issue." So again,
that's so funny because I had the exact opposite. Literally, literally the exact opposite I felt when I was reading this issue. I was like, man, this actually felt like I read a 22-page comic book opposed to like, again, which I loved ASM and what they're doing there as Zeb and JRJR together. Actually, this is to me, it was a great example of a solid 22-page comic book where you're giving me dialogue, progression. I just don't see a lot of the things you guys are harping on it. And again, that is your truth. That is your opinions. I just don't see it. You guys talk about bad pacing. I'm like, he has a ton of characters he's juggling, and again, that's the story. It's the end of the Spider-Verse, right? And I feel like I love what we're getting because I like these different Spider-Man characters. Like kind of Adam said, I had no idea where these characters were before this issue. I had no problem the way he did it. I liked Spinstress. She was fun. Like a lot of these Spider characters are probably gonna be fodder for whatever, Shothra or Morlun or whatever her name, whatever is gonna happen, and that's fine. But I liked, Arania showing up. I loved, just to me, Arania. I'm terrible at pronouncing things. I should stop podcasting. But the thing is, to me, this was a fun issue, and one of the things I talked about in our group chat was I like the fact this is much different than what we're getting from Zeb Wells. And I like that. It brings me back to the 90s when in 80s, early 90s when all the series were kind of like, well, not really Webb. Webb is a bastard, but that's a whole different story. But
Conway was writing it, yeah.
Yeah, but the thing is, it's such a different book. It's just a different take on Spider-Man. I like the fact that we're not just getting like the same style. And again, you may not like the style, and that's fair. I'm not saying anything, but like, for me, there's just no absolutes. I mean, you cannot dig into it, but for me, it's like I just feel like some of the stuff with these criticisms are just like, I just don't know if they're all completely fair. To be quite honest. I mean, I think he's to me. Hold on, one last thing. To me, he's progressing the story as much as I got plenty of what I needed. I got backstory. He progressed it forward. He introduced more aspects of his characters, and I like Slott I like Slott from Spider-Man. I haven't really liked his Iron Man, and I definitely didn't like his Fantastic Four when I read it. I think he gave his Fantastic Four another world, but I'm gonna be honest with you, Paul. I actually kind of like the first half of his Iron Man run. It's when he got into the Arno stuff that it fell apart for me. Oh, really? I actually like the control, like the overarching controller plot. I actually thought that was kind of neat. I like the controller a lot. I've always been an underrated character. But yeah. So listen, I apologize, Neil. I mean to get fired up there. I shouldn't, not be a dickwad, and I apologize. But the thing is, I definitely just feel like sometimes you guys are just a little too hard on him, man. I'm just like, again, you don't have to like him, that's fine. But man, it just feels like you're not being completely fair to Dan, because Dan, he's put out some. And when we do the Slott debates, Lord knows, I'm not sure it's going to get that bad. But gotta say, I just feel that he's not as bad as you guys think he is. You don't have to like him, but I feel there's lots of good that he's done. And these last two issues, honestly, have been kind of refreshing. I really feel like we're getting a different kind of story, and I like this. And maybe the Spider-Verse wasn't for everybody, but I loved the Spider-Verse, the Spider-Verse story line the first time. I loved it. Thought it was unique and interesting. And to me, this feels like the real sequel to it, rather than the other bastard one that came afterwards. That was terrible.
Yeah. I mostly think that the Spider-Verse is like a one-time thing you can do, or like it needs to happen like once a decade. I think the Spider-Verse inherently
it's been a while.
It's been like 3 years.
Since Spider-Geddon, because you had the Spider-Geddon story. Now you have this, but
you also have like Web Warriors and all the other Spider-Verse stuff.
Yeah, well, to dovetail off of Paul's point, I do think it is nice that the Slott story is in its own title. It's a satellite book. You don't have to pick it up if you don't want to, and it's not driving the overall narrative. And so I am interested to see where Slott takes this. If obviously if it goes past, a 6-issue arc or whatever. So like I'm kind of curious to see how that is going to work, because we haven't seen that really since the Brand New Day era, and even then he was kind of like a pillar of that era. So he was driving the bus in a lot of ways that you didn't see with the other, the other Brain Trust and the webheads. So I didn't love it, but I didn't hate it like Neil did. So I'm kind of in between you two. And look, this is one of the reasons that I like having Paul on here with, me and Neil, who are, have been known to be anti-Slott. This type of dialogue is something that we just don't see on Spidey podcasts all that often anymore, particularly when it comes to, Dan Slott and kind of him being a third rail. So I appreciated the discussion.
Also, part of it is I don't like Slott's Silk, and I'm a very big Silk fan. So it's kind of like, oh, what's he going to do with her this time?
Yeah, I would be interested to see what he does with Silk driving that bus when he's building off of the other characterization that was established. So, to be fair to that,
and I think that's fair criticism. And listen, like I can admit like bias, being biased on certain things, and I want to make that very clear. I'm not saying I'm exempt from it, but far from it. For positive and for negative things. There's writers where I'm like, oh, I don't want to read this, or I'm not looking forward to this, and it's like I tried it, and I'm like, you just can't get into it. That's human nature. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just I think it's the trick is, and again, this is everyone struggles with this. Just being aware of it, and just understanding like, what, this writer is just not my thing, and that's fine, and just know like this for me, for me, Slott is he's solid. He definitely wore his time on Spider-Man way too far, in my opinion. As far as when he his run, I thought he should have probably bolted out after Spider-Verse, to be quite honest. And whatever. But the thing is, I just think that Slott will, if you give it a chance, it'll be fine. It'll be fun. And like I said, to me, it's a breath of fresh air. I like having the two contrasting books together. And I'm curious I'm curious, will he stay on after the Spider-Verse story, and will this title keep going afterwards? Well, good. Well, if that's the case, then
he has an arc.
Yeah.
He has an arc planned. So apparently he bragged about it in his interview that he was talking to some other Spider-Man writer, and they thought his idea for the next arc is pretty cool. So he was all jazzed about that.
And be honest, I think for me, I think the biggest strength of Dan Slott is his ideas. I think the execution definitely wavers at times, and I think that's the big, again, and I'm a Dan Slott fan. I think saying that it's an accurate statement. So will he drive this arc to the end where you guys all feel the same way? I hope not. I hope maybe he convinces you guys that, what, maybe we're being too harsh on him. We need to give it another shot. You don't have to love all of it, but I just think this issue is just not. To me, you have to have issues like this. If you're gonna swing big, like have Spider-Man team up with Morlun, which I wasn't, Morlun, whatever his name is, I wasn't predicting that. I was like, oh, that's interesting. You gotta have a reason for it. You have to explain it.
The reason is clever. I have to give him that. I thought it was interesting that basically he's now a spider totem himself. Spoilers.
and also the spiders are his source of food. So if Shothra infects all of them, he essentially starves to death. I think that's neat. I just think that you probably could have just left it at that. I don't think you needed to see, like you said earlier, like we talked about the inheritors being eaten. I just think the inheritors in concept are a bad idea. No one cares about like the steampunk vampires. But you gotta get rid of them somehow.
Yeah, they're dead. Yeah, they're dead. So it's not like they're coming back.
They're gone.
I do have to say
good,
I'm going back to Bagley's art for a second. Bagley has a very poor use of negative space in this issue. There's a lot of pages that could have been very much condensed inwards, but like there's a lot of establishing shots. There's a lot of like 3-panel pages, And I feel like Bagley could have used that negative space a lot better.
Hmm.
The opening page, the first page with like the OC spiders, like there's like so much negative space there when you could have made that like the top third of the page instead of like three quarters of it.
Go ahead, Paul, and then we'll start wrapping things up.
Wrapping up. Yeah. Sorry, guys. The comment about the negative space thing, or not negative space thing, but the coloring thing, I loved it. I thought that was really clever, to be honest. I like the whole idea of the beta being a callback to the original kind of coloring, and the little pixelation of the coloring. I thought that was really clever, and I know it was a little jarring because other characters, weren't. And I could see that, but I felt like it did its job pretty well visually, and I thought it was kind of fun and interesting. So, I love that. I thought it was a nice little touch.
I think it's a conceptually neat idea. I just think it could have. It's Edgar Delgado. Like I said, he's only good with like two line artists, and with Bagley, just looks really, really off.
But and really quickly too, I wanted the coloring itself. This whole issue, I actually felt like a callback to the original like 90s comics, to be honest. It felt colorized. It's so bright. It felt like ASM in the 90s to me. And I'm not sure if anyone will agree with that.
I don't
know about the 90s per se, but I mean, I like the palette in general. I like this kind of palette more than I do the palette that's being used over in ASM for the most part.
See, I like both. And that's why I think it's cool we're getting two different kind of very, very, very different stories, but two different contrasting of, artists, storytelling and coloring. I think it just shows you how like versatile, to be honest, shows you how versatile Spider-Man is. He looks good no matter what. So
I don't know. Maybe they've gotten like, I'm trying to think of a good Bagley colorist. Not going.
I don't like the darker tones on him.
I think it depends. If it's Hollowell, God no. But I just don't like Hollowell ever. So.
Yeah. All right. So, man, what a spirited discussion that turned into. Yeah. Yeah,
blows are going to be had.
Yeah, Greg's over there doing fucking robot motions. If you're listening to this audio edition, all right. So I'm going to go around the horn. We'll start with Greg. Greg, kind of give everybody a preview. Kind of tell everybody what's going on with the Voices from the Eerie Gargoyles podcast.
Well, we've got 3 more shows left for the season. One's already in the can, and it's not in Patreon now, but it should be very soon, i.e. I will send it to you shortly. And that's coming out on Friday. We haven't recorded another one yet. We were going to, but weather issues prevented that. So but we've got 2 more left for the year, and then we're gonna take a little bit of a break, but we're gonna keep recording things. We want a bit of a backlog again, and we're hopefully gonna do a couple of fan shows as well.
Paul, what's coming up on the Comic Binge YouTube?
Well, this week we've got a little Wakanda Forever MCU required reading, which will be a little mini Wakanda review, Wakanda Forever review. I've already had my big review on the MCU fan show, which you can hear the 3-hour version of that. And I'm not joking; it was 3 hours long. There's a lot to digest in that movie, which, by the way, I've called a masterpiece. It is a brilliant movie as far as like superheroes go, and I love it. So yeah, we dissect that mother effer for like 3 hours. Me, Chris, and hopefully my buddy Michael, MJ, will be showing up on Tuesday as well. We've got a really fun little story to talk about, which ironically, funny enough, the storyline before the one we're reading has Morlun in it. So forget he had a little minor appearance in Black Panther.
I think I have. If Michael's on it, I think I have an idea of what it is. Maybe.
Yeah, it's fun. It's after that. It's basically the prelude to Doom War is what we're reading, and Doom War. Yikes. Anyway, but the prelude to Doom War is kind of cool. So we're gonna break down that. I think that's a worthy storyline to read after watching Wakanda Forever. So we got that, and then the week after that, the things are gonna get crazy because my wife will be joining me with her podcasting partner. to break down with Chris and I From Hell by Alan Moore. So that'll be very interesting. Yeah, so that'll be very interesting. My wife and I had never. Well, we podcasted before on a random show. It's a long story, but this one will be actually like my show, and it'll be fun. She's a lot smarter than me, obviously. So, but yeah, it'll be good times. Good times.
Yeah, I have my own theory on Jack the Ripper, so I look forward to hearing hers and yours. I know what the movie in the comic did, but
all right, Adam, got anything going on other than making some cameos?
Listen to any good music?
Nothing really coming up these days.
Neil, we'll wrap with you, so to speak.
All right, your boy gets the last word. Okay, so we talked about it earlier. Books of X launching next year. We're kind of settling into our routine, trying to figure out how to pace our episodes, figure everything out. I'm working on some more behind the scenes stuff, taking on more contract work. I do have some other stuff in the pipeline. I'm going to run it by Zach when I have a chance, but most of it's kind of conceptual at this point. So hopefully you'll see some of that fulfilled in the near future. But I guess the most immediate thing to look forward to is Books of X as it comes out next year. And we're hoping to have it out in the early stages of January. So.
All right. Want to give a shout out to two of our patrons, our two newest ones, Laura and Keegar. Thank you guys for your support on patreon.com/Spideydude Network. I will be having to re-record this outro, but without further ado, thanks again for watching. Thanks again for listening, guys. If you're listening to the show on your favorite podcasting catcher, be sure to give us a 5-star review and share the show. That is how we continue to grow this show and all the shows here on the Spideydude Radio Network. So if you're watching us live on YouTube, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and hit the notification bell so that way you can be updated whenever we go live here on YouTube. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to...
All right. That wraps up this episode of the Spideydude Experience. Thanks for watching. If you're watching us live on YouTube, if you're listening to us on the audio edition, also thank you. Be sure to give us some feedback on your favorite podcasting catchers. But if you are on the YouTube, be sure to give us a like, a share, and subscribe so you can be notified when the next episode of this show drops, but also our other show on the channel, Make My Mayday, the show all about the Spider-Girl title, the Spider-Girl world, and the world of the MC2. We got our other great shows on the Spidey Radio Network. Our Spideydude Legacy Vault has Clone Saga Chronicles and Spectacular Radio on it. And then we got our newer shows, such as Voices from the Eerie, Amazing Spider-Man Classic Season 2. And our newest show on the network, Spectacular Spider-Man Sal Buscema Era Podcast. Those four are our newest shows, along with this one, Spideydude Experience. But we got a new one coming very soon called Books of X. It's going to be a Patreon exclusive. Speaking of our Patreon, I've got to thank our Patreon subscribers before I get out of here. The Vinkman, Scott, Greg, Phoenician, Kale, Georgia, Jessica, Catherine, Cindy, and Jurgen. Thank you guys for your support of the show here on the Spideydude Radio Network. All the money goes in, and it really does help keep the lights on. If you want to be a part of the program, you can do it a couple different ways. You can leave us some feedback on your favorite podcasting catchers, but you can also leave us an email, SpideydudeRadioNetwork@gmail.com, as well as the voicemail line for all the shows here on the Spideydude Radio Network, 818-925-6631. Thanks for watching, thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time here on the Spideydude Radio Network.